Edition of Mediation Matters, first one of 2026. Happy New Year to everyone. As people come in, I'll let them in. I know we've got 2 hours ahead of us with the first hour we're spending with Zach from Prolink to talk about our insurance. I'll introduce Zach in a moment. Before I do that, I just want to offer a land acknowledgement to acknowledge the land that I'm working from today is a uh, situated on ancestral homelands of the Wendat, Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and Mississaugas of the Credit. Um, I think that we do these land acknowledgements if you've seen me do them before, inviting each of you to think of something that you feel grateful for, if that is something you wish to do this morning, and think about the connections that the land brings to us, the wisdom that it imparts. And I like to reflect on something that I feel grateful for, and that's usually my dog walk in the morning. However, it was raining a little bit, the sun wasn't peeking out. But the winter trees looked nice, so I think I would do a little leap and say I was grateful for the beautiful winter trees and the sustainability and life giving that they give us throughout the year. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Zach from Prolink. Zach is a practice leader at Prolink and has a lot of information to share with you today. We are recording the presentation. We'll put it on the OIFM website, and Zach has been gracious enough to agree to share his slides with us after the presentation. And there will be chances for questions and answer. You can put them in the chat. I'll have a look at those, and then at the end of Zach's presentation, we'll go to your questions and we can answer some specifics around your insurance. And I, like many of you, will be renewing soon, and Zach will talk about that process too. Thanks so much, Zach. Over to you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, everyone, today. I really appreciate it. And to be the first one, that's very exciting. So we're going to spend about 40 minutes together today. We'll go over kind of insurance in general. What I find, I've been doing this a while now. I won't tell you how long, but it's been more than a couple of years. And what I find sometimes is that insurance can be really daunting, and we use a lot of big words, and it can be confusing. And so, really, what we're going to do today is do kind of a high-level overview of what you can get, what you need to protect yourself and your practice, what kind of some of these acronyms mean that you run into all the time, and kind of demystify a little bit. We'll talk about some examples of when you might need it. We're going to go over, what happens if there's a claim, because I think that's another bit that people have a lot of questions about, that sometimes they're a little bit scared to ask, because nobody ever wants to have a claim, but that's really what this is here for, right? So what happens if there is a claim, what you do, and then we'll leave open the last kind of 10, 15 minutes, and we'll open it up to questions if anybody's got one. Again, any question is a really great question. This is a confusing thing. There are still things that I run into after doing this for however long I've been doing it, which is about 17 years, where I still have questions, right? And that's a normal bit of learning something new. So any question is a great question. Ask away. If I don't have the answer right off the top of my head, I will definitely find out for you, and we'll get back to you. As Marianne said, I'll share all of our details and our content here. So if you're looking over it later and you have another question, I'd be happy to introduce you to anybody on the team, and they can help you with any questions that you've got. Renewal is coming up. It's February 1st. There's a bit of a delay in getting some stuff back from the carrier and with programming it. So it's launching a little bit later than we normally would like to. There's no detriment to any of you guys. We have an extension in place, and there'll be no added fees or anything like that. So that renewal link is going to be going out soon. For anybody who has that question, we'll get that out of the way right away. You should have it within, hopefully by the end of this week, if not beginning of next week. And then we can get everybody renewed for this year coming up as well. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Please let me know if it comes through okay. Let me see it. Perfect. Okay, excellent. So as I said, we're going to go through a few things here. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about professional liability insurance, commercial general liability, contents, what's new for 2026, what to do if there's a claim. And I know that some of this, again, sounds pretty daunting, but we're going to get into it. We're going to break it all down and what it means. And really, when we kind of break it down, it's nice and easy, really. So first thing we'll start with is professional liability insurance. And I think the number one thing to think about when it comes to professional liability insurance is that it has a ton of names, but they all mean the same thing. So you might hear it referred to as professional liability insurance or PLI. You might hear it referred to as errors and omissions or E&O, malpractice insurance. It's all the exact same thing. And really, what it's in place to do is to protect you if you have made a mistake. Really, that's what it comes down to, right? So you've made an error or omission, you've forgotten to do something, you gave bad advice, anything like that that comes out of being you're acting in your scope of practice as a mediator, right? So that's all it's there for, is to protect you if you have made a mistake, or if you think, or somebody thinks that you've made a mistake, right? And that's really what we've seen in the professional liability space in the last, I would probably say just after COVID is when it really started to change. And we went from having claims that were really based in um, fact, I'd say, and had real grounds to them, to a real shift towards a lot of frivolous claims. And what we're seeing in a lot of programs is that shift is almost 50 to 60% of claims that we see now are frivolous, right? Which means that somebody is upset. They think you did something wrong when you haven't, but they want to launch suit against you to try and get something back, right? It's frustrating overall for a lot of clients, obviously, because it when there's a claim or when there's a suit launched against you, is a lot of added stress. It's something that you don't really need, especially if you haven't done anything wrong. But that's really what this policy is here to do. So if somebody says, I think that you made a mistake, even if you haven't, this policy is still going to respond, right? And it's going to, when I say respond means it's going to pay, really, at the end of the day, right? It's going to step in to help you with lawyers. It's going to pay for those lawyers. It's going to pay for any judgments that come out of it. So the big thing is, as we see on an ongoing basis, is those legal fees, right, that you have to incur to defend yourself. It's going to take care of that. Any court settlements, or if there's any damages that need to go to a third party, right? Those are the kind of big things that are going to be covered under that professional liability umbrella. Um, so again, what's covered versus what's not. I mean, I don't want to read the whole slide because it's not really my style, and I'm going to provide this also. The big ones, as I said, so what's going to be covered is if there's a breach in your professional duty. So let's say something gets shared by accident, and as a result, there is, the mediation breaks down, or there's compensatory damages, so you have to pay as a result of it. Somebody can launch suit against you for that. We see claims coming forward sometimes if there's a failure to deliver on promised services, right? So that's important when you're thinking about the language that you're using when you're dealing with clients, right? We don't see it so much in your world, but you see on big billboards, you don't pay if we don't win, kind of things. So those can kind of set expectations that aren't really realistic for some clients. Poor advice is kind of a broad one, but again, if somebody thinks that you've given them poor advice, or it's led to a knock-on effect that's going to cost them money, or they think that they're out money, they can turn around and launch suit. An omission would be something that you've forgotten, right? So this is a big one when it comes to your documentation, right? So be very careful with your documentation. Be as thorough as you possibly can. Misrepresentation, miscommunication, we've kind of seen that, or financial loss, right? So those are the things that are going to be kind of covered. And the way that I kind of, always, when I'm trying to talk to clients about it, professional liability is really there to help protect against kind of all the stuff that's coming out of your mind when you're acting as a mediator, right? So anything that you've learned that you're bringing across to clients, right? All of that stuff that's kind of in there outside of the operational stuff, that's going to be under your professional liability. What's not going to be, and we're going to talk about ways to backstop some of this stuff that's not covered in professional liability with other coverages. But so what wouldn't be covered is anything that's intentionally. So if you give intentionally wrongful advice, fraudulent advice, you commit an illegal act, that's not going to be covered, right? Because that's all outside of the scope of you acting as a mediator. Bodily injury is going to be, so let's say somebody comes into your office or your home, they slip, they fall. That's not covered under your professional liability, but we do have a way of backstopping that, which we're going to talk about next. Same with property damage. Workers' rights or employment issues. So If you have employees, this is something to potentially think about, and we have a backstop for that. It's called employee practices liability, but it wouldn't fall under your professional liability, right? Because professional liability is only going to cover you acting as a mediator, right? So those that's the kind of core to remember with professional liability. And then again, obviously not going to cover claims that come up after the cancellation of the policy. So if you cancel, there's a claim afterwards, it's not going to cover that, right? We have ways of protecting yourself after you retire, which we can talk about. It's called EPL. And essentially, we stretch the policy to cover you for anything that happened while you were in practice, right? After you've retired. So we can talk a little bit about that. And then a breach of contract, again, going to be covered under commercial general liability, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So we get this question a fair bit. And so people will say, well, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I've never had any issues. Do I really need professional liability coverage, right? And the short answer, and this is not coming, I am a very low pressure salesperson. You can get that from me as we're going through. And this is not an insurance person trying to say, yes, you need this coverage. Really, you need this coverage because the world as a whole and clients as a whole are becoming more and more unpredictable. As I said, the shift that we've seen since post COVID to frivolous lawsuits, and not just in we have about 68 large programs that we manage, has been towards really, really frivolous claims coming forward. And the barrier to starting a claim is being able to find a lawyer or paralegal who can launch suit, really, right, and put together a statement of claim that can be served. So somebody can launch a claim based on anything, right? It doesn't have to have grounds to be launched, right? And you have a responsibility under our legal system to defend, right? So even if you get it, you read it, you go, this is completely bonkers. Like this has nothing to do with what I actually told this person. It's not going to go away. You have a duty to defend yourself. And under this policy, the beautiful bit is that you don't end up having to pay for that out of your pocket, right? So this insurance company is going to step in once you get that statement of claim. They're going to say, you need a lawyer. We're going to pay for it. And they're going to take all of that off your plate, which leaves you to do what you're supposed to be doing, which is acting as a family mediator, right? You know, again, we reflect back on that kind of earlier thing. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never made a mistake. The amount of calls I've never made a mistake before, and I did, right? Things happen. People get busy. You've got 18 things that you're trying to balance at once, especially if you're running a small business, right? It's you, maybe somebody else, maybe not. You're doing billing, you're doing bookings, you're doing mediations. There's a lot of stuff going on, and mistakes can happen. And as a result, this is there to backstop, to make sure that you just get to keep acting and doing what you like to do and your job every day, right? So again, we kind of employees earlier. Some people have employees, some people don't, and that's perfectly okay. But the more employees that you have on, the more room for error, right? So it's like the game of telephone, that as it's getting passed down, there's more room for that message to be diluted or changed, right? So again, the big thing that we come back to is, even if it's a frivolous claim, it's still going to cost. And if we look at kind of our book of business, when we're looking at these kind of frivolous claims on average, so if it's completely frivolous, by the time all is said and done, we've got lawyers involved, they've done mediations, they've gone to trial, which usually don't get as far as trial, but we're looking at on average between $13,000 to $18,000 to get yourself out of that frivolous suit, right? So if you didn't have this coverage in place, that would be having to come out of the business or your pocket to defend yourself, right? So for anywhere from about $162 a year for $1 million worth of coverage over $1 million to $323 for $5 million over $5 million, you're really offsetting any potential risk, right? So ability in a nutshell. And I think it's a lot of information coming at once. So please, if you have any questions as we're working through, pop them into the chat. And Marianne, if they're pertinent questions, if you want to pop them in as we're going, we can stop and go through some, or we can go them over all of them in the end. It's completely up to kind of the group, what the group's feeling. So
Thanks.
that's errors and emissions. Do we have anything, Marianne? Or?
No, no, I just said thanks. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Um,
watch it, everyone.
okay.
Zach, I think your internet might be a little unstable. I'm
Head
not sure.
as you're acting as a mediator, right? So you're using your education and your background, your mind. That's what your E&O is really going to be there for. When we shift gears and we talk about commercial general liability insurance, and so a lot of people will call it CGL, right? And if you've ever signed off on a lease or anything like that, there's usually a stipulation within your lease that asks about your CGL, right? And they usually just put CGL. So CGL is really there to protect the more operational side of the business, right? So it's going to protect you from if somebody comes to your office or home and they slip and fall, right? If somebody tries to sue you for libel or slander, if there's property damage, right? All of that kind of good stuff is going to come under that commercial general liability policy. Because remember, again, the E&O is covering all of your stuff that's coming out of your mind as a family mediator. The commercial general liability is going to cover that operational stuff. It's your office. It's people coming into your office, coming and going, right? It's perception about the business, right? So that's what your CGL is going to cover. So official definition, third-party claims for bodily injury, property damage, reputational harm, right? So that's kind of what we just talked about. So third-party claim means that somebody came to your place, then they were injured, there was property damage sustained, or somehow you've hurt their reputation. They've turned and launched suit back against you. That's where your CGL is going to come pick it up, right? So it's going to call. It's going to, as I said, it's going to pay for damages, legal fees if you have to defend yourself, right? Medical payments. It's going to extend for your legal liability as a tenant, right? So if you're in a building, you're renting or you're leasing, your landlord is going to say, well, you're responsible for all the stuff that happens. I'll take care of everything from the walls out, essentially. But anything that happens in this unit, you're going to be responsible for. And if there's a claim as a result of it, so let's say, there's a flood, there's a fire, there's anything like that, and the landlord turns around and says, you caused this, you need to fix it, your CGL is going to step in to help with that. Okay. Again, so if an employee is injured at work, but it's not covered by WSIB, that's going to be covered under this policy up to a limit. And then there's a little bit of non-owned auto coverage. So non-owned auto is kind of one of those fun throw-ins, I guess. Again, if you're renting a vehicle, they always ask you at the rental agency, would you like to buy the insurance or not? You can technically use your commercial general liability policy. My recommendation is usually just to take the insurance through the car rental agency, because then you won't have a claim on your CGL. In this case, it's not really going to affect rate too much, but it can just be a little bit more messy than if you just buy it through them. And usually the price is about the same. So when we're talking about CGL coverage under the program that you guys have, it starts at just over $100 for $1 million and goes up to 142 for two. So it's fairly inexpensive. And really, if you own, rent, or lease a commercial space, you should be thinking about CGL. If you work from home, or so you have a home-based business, people are coming to you or employees are coming to you, you should think about it. A lot of times people go, well, it's covered under my home policy. It's really important to check with your home insurance provider if it is or it's not. A lot of home insurance policies will have an exclusion for home-based businesses. So it's important that you check. Again, especially within the program world, when we're looking at costs as well, if you were to add an extension for a home-based business to your home policy, it can be fairly expensive. Under this policy, you're looking at under $150 to essentially cover yourself for the year. Right? So again, things to think about, if you're going out to visit clients, it's always good to have it in place as well. in case something happens while you're there, then you can refer back to your own CGL if the client doesn't have enough coverage in place. So, so that's CGL. So we've talked about professional liability insurance, or E&O. That's the stuff coming out of our heads. Our commercial general liability is our operational piece, right? So now we've kind of covered off those two. The last one that we kind of need to, I guess, let's call it demystify, would be kind of contents. And so contents is just like your house, right? It's the stuff that's in your unit, right? So things to think about, computers, printers, any specialized equipment that you're using, files, documents, all that kind of stuff. That's, if you have an office, it's everything kind of from the walls in. So when I talk to clients, I like to say, well, if you're looking around in your office right now and there's something that happens, so there's a flood or a fire, everything's gone. What's it going to cost for you to go out essentially and buy all that stuff brand new, right? And so it's important to think about it in brand new. The insurance company's not going to go around and try and get you kind of used furniture and stuff like that. Even if you bought it used, they're going to replace it with like, kind, and quality, which is new. Right. So if you had to go out, you had to go to Staples or wherever else to buy new computers, file cabinets, desks, chairs, whatever it is. That's what you need to be thinking about in that number. Right. And so, and in this program, we can go anywhere from 10,000 all the way up to 50,000, ranges from about $200 to $400, depending on the limit. Right. So, so again, things to think about is if there was a sewer backup, which means that water's coming back up through a toilet or a sink. If there's a flood, which means that the water's coming from outside in, earthquakes, fires, all that kind of good stuff, right? So just to think about. It also includes crime coverage. So crime coverage is going to be if somebody steals from you. Really, that's what it kind of boils down to, right? So theft, forgery, fraud, etc. So it's really just if you have employees, that's something to think about. So things that are new for 2026 within the OAFM program, and this is actually pretty exciting, especially for a lot of small business owners. Is we've introduced the ability to access a legal documents portal. It's a new coverage, so the big one is the legal documents portal, and so essentially what it boils down to is that if you add this endorsement, you have access to a whole portal of hundreds of legal documents. So contracts, if you're looking for if you're trying to collect on money, there's all sorts of personal stuff in there too. So there's lease templates, there's will templates, there's all sorts of stuff. And they're all approved by lawyers. They get reviewed every year. So the company that we work with has a team of lawyers. They go through, they update everything that needs to. So they're all ready to go. You can access it from anywhere. You can save your progress as you go through. So it's, instead of having to go to a lawyer to get something drafted, you have access to this service, and there are tons of templates there ready for you to use at any time. So that's one piece of it. The other kind of interesting bits that go along with this one is there's a legal and HR helpline. So what you can do is you can phone in, and let's say you have a question. So, I'm thinking about letting somebody go. What do I have to do to do it, right? Or, a client has not paid for X and owes me Y. How do I go about starting to try that collection process, right? Any of those questions that you have, right? Or if you've been involved with something, you think, I don't know, which way does this go? I would love a second opinion from a lawyer or from an HR professional. Any of that stuff, you can call them, and you can speak with a specialist, and they can walk you through the process. If it's going to get really involved where you need to launch suit and stuff like that, what they'll do is they have a panel of lawyers that they work with, and they'll refer you to them as well, and you actually get a discounted rate for using somebody on their panel, which is great. So they'll do a document review for you as well. There's some stipulations around it. It has to be less than 8 pages, but they'll look through it for you. So let's say you're moving into a new building, and you go, I'd like somebody to take a peek at this lease for me to make sure that there's nothing untoward in it, or that I'm not putting myself in a situation where I'm not that comfortable. You can send it over to them. They'll review it for you and let you know if there's any potential exposure. And then again, the last piece is, if there's something that's not in the library already, for legal documents, if it's a smaller legal document, they can actually draft it for you. So again, this is just a way of kind of minimizing some of those legal costs that you may run into while you're kind of working through day-to-day operations, right? So that one's new for this year. It's I believe it's $30 for the year. It's just an endorsement that you can add on, and as you're working through your renewal application, it will just ask you, are you interested in the legal document portal and enhanced legal services? You click yes, and it's going to add it right onto the end of your invoice. So um, Prolink as a whole too can help you out if you need home and auto insurance, life and health, benefits, all of that kind of good stuff. We're really a one-stop shop, which kind of sets us apart from some other brokerages. And I'm not going to make this into a big commercial, but anything that you need to do when it comes to insurance, if you give us a call, then we'll have somebody in-house that can help you out. So just to kind of recap what we've gone through so far, and I know we've covered a lot in really not a whole lot of time. So we've talked about professional liability insurance and what it's going to cover. It's going to cover all that stuff coming out of our mind as mediators. We've talked about commercial general liability, or CGL, which is going to cover our operational side. We've talked about how to protect our stuff that's in our offices with our contents. We've talked about some changes that are coming down the pipe, and important new services. So we've talked about what the insurance package kind of looks like, right? So again, as mentioned earlier, one of the kind of black holes for a lot of people is, well, what if there's actually a claim? What do I do? Right. And so we're going to go over that right now. So we're going to go through the process of a claim. But the first thing I want to chat about, and one of the biggest questions that I get is, what should I do if there's a claim? What shouldn't I do? Right. How do I try and limit the exposure that I might face as a result of this claim? So first things first is, if you get a statement of claim, right? So a statement of claim is going to come, and I should print one off to keep on my desk so I can show it in this thing. Really, it's going to say statement of claim at the top. It's going to name your name, probably your company as well if you're incorporated. And it's going to say, you did this, and as a result, you owe me this. Really, that's what it's going to boil down to. But it's always going to say statement of claim at the top. It's going to be delivered either by a paralegal or a process server or somebody. Sometimes it's like the movies where they go, are you Zach, and they give you the thing and you've been served. A lot of times it'll just come by registered mail. So if you receive a statement of claim, again, if it's valid or if it's frivolous, it doesn't matter. If you've got it, it means that you have to respond to it. So let us know right away. Come to Prolink first. We'll review it with you, make sure that everything's in place, and then we'll move on to the next steps, which we'll talk about. The second bit is, so that statement of claim is going to be the number one. Let us know right away. If you start receiving threatening verbal or written comments from a client about a potential lawsuit, right? So they say, so sometimes what they'll call this is a demand letter, and they'll say, you messed up, and as a result, you owe me this money, right? Or I'm going to launch a complaint against you because you did this, right? Anything like that, let us know as well, right? A lot of times we can actually get in front of it and stop it before it goes to a full claim, right? And again, the third thing to kind of let us know about is, if you've made an error that you go, you know what, I don't think that went right. I think this is going to go pear-shaped really quickly and it's going to get bad. If there's something like that, let us know. Okay. There's no downside to letting us know. The nice bit about being in a large program like this is that you will have your deductible, which a standard deductible on these policies is $500. So that's what you'll have to pay if it goes to a claim. But there won't be really any detriment on your premium, right? There might be a small claim surcharge, but it's not like if you have an auto policy and you're involved in an accident and you go from a 7-star to a 0-star and there's a huge increase. The nice bit about being in a program is you kind of share that risk amongst everybody, right? So it's not going to hit you directly. It's going to be spread out over the group, which makes it a lot more manageable moving forward, right? So those are the things that could come up that will tell you that there is a claim, or you may have a claim coming down, right? So statement of claim, threatening, demand letters, anything like that, or you've made an error. So any of those things, let us know right away, and we can help work through it with you. So the other things that you should think about, so to dos, I guess, really, is if somebody is threatening you with something, only state the objective facts, right? So don't admit liability or fault. It's very easy in a lot of these situations, and I think as trained mediators, your group is probably much further ahead than a lot of other groups that we deal with, right? In that confrontation piece is not as intimidating probably for a lot of people in this group, which is great. But it can be very stressful. It's easy to say, yes, no, I agree. I made a mistake, whatever. The reason that we don't want to do that is because, especially if you haven't made a mistake, right? If you think, well, that might just make it go away. The problem being is that if you admit to liability or fault, it's going to make it very difficult for the insurance company's lawyers to try and walk that back, right? Again, the other thing to do is let us know right away. So give us a call, say, hey, look, this is what's happening, and our team will help you through that. And if it is a claim, we'll get you in touch with the claims department at Victor. They'll assign a claims adjuster, and then they'll start working through, which is actually on the next slide of what happens. So again, if you're getting prepped, if you think there's a claim or if there has been, start pulling together all your documentation. Because it's going to be the first thing that the claims adjuster asks for. So if you can get ahead of it and be proactive, start getting together all that documentation, a summary of what happened, of the interactions that you've had with these people. It's always going to be beneficial. It's going to make that claims process go that much further. Or sorry, faster, not further. Things not to do. Again, I've kind of mentioned this. Don't admit liability or fault. Don't make any written or verbal statements. That's the nice bit of having this policy in place, is that if there is a claim, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to assign legal counsel, and they're going to take care of it for you. And again, the reason being that you don't want to inadvertently admit to doing something that you didn't actually do, right? It's going to make it harder to walk it back. Don't really ever try and negotiate or compensate somebody who's trying to get money from you. We've seen it in the past where clients will think, well, you know what, this is easier. I can just get it done and it's done. I don't have a claim, whatever, right? And so their client will say, well, you pay me $5,000 and I'll go away. And what happens is the client will pay the 5,000 just to have an actual formal suit turned around on them, right? And they'll say, well, I already paid you, and there's no record of it. There's nothing like that. And so they've already paid out of pocket for whatever to try and negotiate and settle the suit. And it comes right back around to a full lawsuit anyways, right? So don't do it. There's no point, right? Again, as I said, the deductibles are very low on this policy. So there's no point paying out of your pocket more than you would have to have professionals defend you, right?
Zach,
If you,
can I ask a
yeah,
question about that?
yep,
So we have a lot of members who will call into OIFM and ask about, what to do. My client is sort of threatening to do XYZ and they're asking
mhm,
for a refund. So
yep,
OIFM doesn't deal with refunds under the complaints policy, and it's very
yep,
common. And a lot of members have sort of elected to do the don't that you just said. And I wonder
yep.
about that in relation to like refunding fees. Does the don't also apply to the refunding fees, or is it just like as a settlement, don't do that? Maybe refunding fees is okay. What's your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that that's going to be on the individual situation and the
Okay.
practitioner, right? If it is a straight up, I don't agree with what you did, and I think that you did it wrong. I'm upset. I want my money back. If you think, what, this is not worth my hassle, a lot of times that will kind of make it go away.
Yeah.
When there is more of a demand letter and it's a significant sum, that's when I would probably stay away from it.
Okay.
So if they're saying, look, like, you pay me 5 grand and I'll go away, kind of thing, if
Yeah.
they're trying to almost extort money out of you, that's when I would
Right.
probably stay away from it. But if you think,
Okay.
I think everybody on the call is a professional, has dealt with difficult clients before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I have as well. And sometimes it is easiest just to go, okay, let's move forward. Let's draw a line in the sand. Let's move forward. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you think it's going to be a very contentious one, where even if you refund the cost and you think it's
Mhm.
going to go any further, that would be one where you might want to give us a call to say, here's what's happening. What do you think? Right. And we can work through that with you. Because if it's going to go further, it may not be worth it for you to give them back their money, right? Like, but that
Right.
would be on a
Yeah.
per situation basis, I would say.
And if one of our members does call you, because they call me and it's sort of like in a bit of a confidential bubble, if
Yep.
they call you and say this is potentially gonna, is happening, I'm not sure, do they
Yep.
get like a little tick on their report
No.
card that no, they don't?
No, no, not at all. So
Okay.
that's kind of the nice bit, and that's one of the benefits of working with a broker,
Okay.
is that we're here, we're your advocates with the
Okay.
insurance company, essentially, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
um, when you call us, there is absolutely no downside at all. Really, we're just chatting, right? And anything that you say to your broker, within
Reason.
within
Yeah, of
grounds, I
course.
guess,
Yeah. Yeah. We know that. Yeah.
is just going to stay with us, right? So
Okay.
if we have that conversation and we say, you know what, I don't think this is going to go any further. I don't think you have to worry about it. If you want to do X and then just take care of it, that's fine. We'll note our file, but we won't let the insurance company know. There's no benefit to
Okay.
them knowing in that case. If it
Okay.
is going to go further and we let the insurance company know,
Yeah.
then they'll assign, we're going to go through what they do next. Again, because it's a big group program, what we see a lot of times is if it's a smaller claim, there's either a very small claim surcharge, so we're talking about less than 15%, or
Uh-huh.
sometimes nothing at all, right? So the
Okay.
only thing that you'd be out of pocket is kind of that $500 deductible. And again, if we're talking about 15% overall, we might be talking about tops kind of $60 increase for the
In
next couple of years,
your
right?
deductible. Okay. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and the insurance company at that point, as I said earlier, if we're looking at frivolous claims, we're looking at kind of baselines about 13,000, and it can go depending on who's named and how intricate it is. We can go way past 20, right? So, for the
Yeah.
extra $60 a year, you've really protected yourself from a lot of
Right.
money running out of your pocket.
Right, right. Okay, so can I give you one example because it comes up a
Yeah,
lot?
yeah.
And let me know what you might say to one of our members if they called you up and said, "Hey, Zach, this client of mine is really upset. They think I did terrible service. I don't think that I did. It feels
Hmm.
frivolous, and I feel angry about it.
Yep.
They're saying if you give me my money back, this can be like give me my money back, or this may go further." And the
Yeah.
big threat is I'm going to call OAFM or I'm going to sue you.
Yeah.
What would you say to that member in that quandary?
I'd probably ask a couple more questions. So
Okay.
I would want a little bit of background on kind of
Hmm.
what happened.
Yeah.
And so, what we've seen historically is that, if a mediation goes poorly for the client, right, for one or the other, the disgruntled party is usually the one who's going to come back, right, and say that
Yeah.
you did
Yeah.
this wrong.
Yeah.
Um, if you stand by what you did and you think you did the right thing,
Yeah.
that ultimate decision is going to be yours. But I would stick by it, right, and
Okay.
say, look, like this was the contract that we entered into, and that you knew that there's potential that this could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're really confident about it, I'd stick to your guns, because a lot of times what we find is that there's a lot of that kind of saber rattling that will happen, like give
Yeah.
me my money back, right? You didn't do a good job, I'm going to sue you, right? A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people will say I'm going to sue you without knowing what that actually takes. And when they start
Right.
getting into that process, they're just going to disappear.
Okay.
But if you've done the right thing, if you think that there's any ambiguity where you go, I don't know, I think I did the right one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's up to your professional judgment. If
Okay.
somebody's like coming out and straight up saying, give me my money back or I'm going to sue you because you did X,
Mhm.
um, and you don't think you did, then I would stand by your guns, right? So,
Okay. Okay.
but,
Does the client's mental health ever factor in for you when you're counseling our members? Like a lot of people are suffering. I think,
mhm.
we've noticed a huge increase in complaints at OAFM.
Yeah,
Like 20, 30 inquiries per year.
right.
Maybe 10 of those go ahead and large percentage, no findings of breach at all, like very, very minimal findings of
Yeah.
breach. So we've noticed that, and I think it's largely in part or partly in part to mental health issues of clients. Do you have any recommendations, like call your insurance company if it's severe mental health, that there's absolutely some, cognitive distortion, there's some, real sort of yeah, gunning for someone? Is it better to call you and talk that through?
Yeah, I think, between calling OAFM and getting kind of your take on it and calling
Yeah,
us, you're never going to have a downside.
true.
Um, Again, what we've found from our side is that, um, it's easy. It's very easy to drop a complaint with the regulatory body, right? And we see that
Yeah,
very often, because it costs clients nothing, right? They
yeah, I
can drop
know.
the complaint and they can go, "I'm out.
Yeah,
I feel better because I've made your life difficult." And
yeah,
I can for it to actually get to a point where they're issuing a statement of claim,
okay.
it takes a lot more. They have to be a lot more dedicated to it, and they have to be willing to typically spend some money to get it going.
Right.
So it's again going to go kind of rely on your judgment. If you think this person is seriously gunning for me, they're willing to spend money to start a claim, to
Yeah.
push to say that I did something wrong. Um, then we can definitely get a claim going. Or if you think it's going to come, then we can get the insurance company on notice. But it's going to be per file that we look at how we make that
Yeah.
decision. But the coverage is going to respond the same whether somebody has a mental issue or not. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
issue.
Thanks, Doc. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
not,
your
not
presentation.
mental issue. I meant
Yeah. Yeah.
mental health issue. Sorry, should
Yeah. Yeah.
be
Yeah.
clarified
Um,
with mental.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please
So,
say again. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, if we finish out our don'ts, don't ever amend or change any of your documentation. If you made a mistake, that's okay. That's exactly what this coverage is here to help protect you from. And mistakes happen, but if you go back afterwards and try and change those documents, you're gonna look pretty guilty. So don't do that. Okay. Again, don't seek your own legal counsel because you're gonna have to pay for them outside of your policy, and you may not be reimbursed for that outside legal counsel. Right. So if there's something that's happening, let us know, because right now, depending on who your lawyer is, you're looking at usually between 150 and 400 per hour. So by calling us and getting a claim going, you're essentially an hour or two into it. If you're paying on your own, and if it goes past that, then you're fine. The insurance company is going to pay for the rest of it, right? And again, let us know right away. So I want to run through this really, really quick. This is just kind of the life cycle of a claim, and then we'll get to questions. So first thing that happens in a claim is you let us know, right? So just like we were just talking about, so give us a call. You'll be talking to, Shelly or James on the team. Sometimes you'll get to me, but we'll walk through the claim with you, see what's happening, right? We'll say, okay, you know what, this has definitely got grounds to start a claim. Let's get it over to Victor. Victor is the insurance carrier on this policy. And so we'll get it over to Victor Claims. They'll assign a claims adjuster. And the adjuster is really I call him kind of your claims buddy through the whole process, right? So they're going to meet with you. They're going to say, tell me all about what happened. Give me all the documentation. Let's figure out what we can do here. They're going to go through it all. They're going to review the statement of claim. They're going to work with the panel counsel that they have. So that's the counsel that they always work with. The nice bit too is if instead, I had mentioned earlier to not go find your own counsel. The nice bit of going through the insurance carrier as well is they see lots of claims like this, and they only deal with firms that do litigation. So they are going to be the right lawyer to help protect you that knows your industry, right? So instead of just hiring, your friend from down the street who normally does wills or real estate deals, right? They're going to find somebody who knows all about mediation, and they're going to get the right person in place to know what you do and to best protect you, right? So they're going to assign a legal counsel to help you through the process. They're going to go through everything with you. So that's called exploration. They're going to get all the documentation together. They're going to talk about the plan. They're going to get legal counsel in place. If it keeps pushing past that, they're going to file. So it's filing is just getting everything to essentially the response to the court. From there, they'll do discovery, which means that the opposite party you have to give them all your documentation so that the opposing counsel has it so they can make their case. They're going to give you your lawyer, all of their stuff to say, this is why we think it should go to trial. Next step will be, this is going to be a shock to everybody on the thing here, mediation. So they'll try and set a mediation where they can work it out before it goes to trial. If the mediation is not successful, it will then go to trial, which is, you're going to court, you're testifying, all that kind of stuff. A lot of them will end in mediation. They won't go any further than that. But what I really like about the way that Victor handles claims, and I get this question a lot actually, but is, I didn't do anything wrong. Is Victor just going to pay to make this go away? If you legitimately haven't done anything wrong and they're not willing to mediate, and essentially it comes down to, I just want to clear my name, Victor will continue to push. So they'll go to trial if they need to clear up your name, essentially, right? They won't just settle just to get it off their books, which I think is really admirable. So that's kind of the life cycle of a claim from trial. You're going to go through everything. At the end, the judge is either going to say, yes, you did this wrong and you owe this person X, or they're going to say, no, you're fine, you're out of here, right? Really, at the end of the day. So, and either way, the insurance company is going to pay for all of that process, right? Up to the limit of your policy, which, as I said, the limits start at 1 million and we can go all the way up to 5 million. So, another question I get a lot is, well, how much do I need? It's really going to depend on the scope of your business. And my kind of counsel is I'll never tell you that you need 1 million or you need two, but to think about if something went wrong, really wrong, right? And somebody was coming back at me for compensatory damages, which means just how much they are going to get because I messed up. What do you think that threshold would look like, right? In general, to see a claim that would go anywhere near a million is very, very rare. Exceed it is extremely rare. So I'll put that out there. But again, for the price difference within the program, it's completely up to you. But I would probably be opting for a little bit more coverage than less. But so Prolink, I'm just going to leave this because I think we've already kind of chatted a lot about it. We've been working with OAFM for over 15 years. We love working with the group and with your client or with yourselves. It's a great group and we really like it. We think it's a really competitive offering that we have through here. Everything is done through our online portal, which a lot of you have used. It's very straightforward. It's easy, your documents right away. The next step of that portal is you'll actually be able to access all of your documentation whenever you need it. So you can go on 24/7. That should be rolling out later this year. So that's really kind of all I've got for right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just ask if there's any questions.
Amazing. That's such a lot of information. I'm so glad we're recording because I think people are going to want to rewatch this. I can't believe I haven't thought of asking you to come out to talk before because you gave some really good advice. So thank you, Zach, for that. Just
Thank you.
on the ground, day-to-day advice, which we often grapple with. When I was connecting with James on the program, he let me know that like we had never had a claim until last year. I think we had 1.5 claims or something from our
Yeah.
membership one, which I thought that was pretty good. And I thought maybe the members would like to hear that, like that really there hasn't
Mhm.
been a lot of activity. And do you want to talk about that a bit if you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's it's really refreshing actually. And I think what it reflects is that, when it comes to what you guys are doing, you are pros at what you're doing and you're delivering results for clients, right? It's when clients get upset really that you start having them push back, right? So I think that's a kudos to you guys. Um, we've seen one claim on the E&O side, and then there was a bit of a cyber claim as well. So I think it's overall the response or the kind of when we look at claims ratios, that's amazing. What I would probably caution is that it doesn't mean that they won't come, right? So, historical trends don't always, delineate future results. So, again, when we're thinking about mitigating risk, that's really what it's all about, right? It's trying to push as much risk off as possible so that it's not affecting your business, right? So I agree. I think it's amazing so far. Keep it in your mind, right? But luckily or hopefully, we do renewal for you, and you do our transaction or the transaction once a year, and then you don't ever have to talk to us
Oh,
again.
yeah.
That's what we would love, right? We love
That's
talking
the
to you guys,
goal.
but
Yeah,
ideally, we don't ever have to
yeah.
talk to you again. So.
That's right. That's right. Thanks, Zach. Haley, you have a question?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, very interesting. So I had to get the commercial liability insurance for my family group conference coordinating, and it was
Yep.
really interesting because I mean it wasn't much money, so it was great. But it took a long time for the insurance company and I to figure it out, and so we finally did, and that's what it was. But I was doing everything by Zoom, but the
Okay.
company I was working with had this really kind of archaic
Yeah.
demand that I had to get this insurance, even though I was doing everything by Zoom. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's coming up a lot, but it was just interesting to have to go through that. And yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't need it, but we'll see. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, anyways, go ahead.
No, agreed, and we do run into that, as I say, a little bit in this program, but a lot in other programs as well, where uh, it's especially large companies. Where if you're contracting with them, it's just something to kind of keep in mind, because usually what will happen is they'll have their legal and compliance teams put together what they think an insurance requirement should be, right? And they slap it on kind of everybody, any subcontractor that they're working with. And so we see it, a lot of times for like in the design world, right? Like, so we have a large program for designers, and they'll be really, really high limits because they're working on building sites and stuff, but they're not ever going there, right? So
Mm.
sometimes we have to kind of work with it. Other times we can push back on the whoever's asking for it and say, hey,
Oh,
look, like explain to us the rationale here, and then we can work through that. So if you ever run into that again, let us know. We can add the coverage, but as a whole, and I can say this for myself and for Shelly and for James, we're not usually people who will just take the status quo and roll with it. If it seems silly or obtrusive, then we'll be asking questions about whether it's actually needed or not.
that's really helpful because yeah, I felt like I had no power, and of course I wanted the contract, so I took it. But I guess the
Yeah.
other thing is I would meet clients in other places. I don't know,
Mhm.
like if that would have covered, like we might have met at, a sort of a little office that I'd
Mhm.
rented. I don't know if that would, like, that's not named because I had to, I don't know if that would cover it if you're sort of
Yeah.
using little offices here or there. Um,
So yeah, so the one thing to think about is if you're using multiple offices, right? I'd probably always lean towards adding the CGL again because it's not a tremendous amount. It gives you that extra layer of coverage. Depending on where it is and how that lease is set up or how that agreement is set up, there may be coverage under the the person who's renting the office, right? Because it's technically their lease, right? So they would have to have coverage in place. Um, but when it comes to a loss, what the insurance company, the big fancy word that they always use is proximate cause of the loss, which just means who caused this, right? Where did it come from, right? So if you being there was how the claim was triggered, then they can come back and they can say, hey, well, it was actually Haley being here that caused this claim. So we want to come like go after her, right? So that's when your CGL would respond, but the initial would be probably whoever owns that space that would
Okay, I
respond.
didn't think
So
of that. I am kind of
yeah,
accident prone, so that's probably good. But and also thank you very much for bringing up the idea that because I that just came up in class last night with my students. They were asking about, have you ever had anybody come back and ask for their money back? And I said no. So
yeah,
it's good to know that it's happening. Or I hate that it's happening, but
yeah,
oh yeah, good point. Thank you.
sure. Yeah, of course.
Thanks so much, Zach. Are there any other questions? Here comes our next speaker for the next hour of our time today. Uh, Here comes Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Welcome. We're just finishing up. Um,
Mhm.
Okay, if there's no questions there, let's leave a little bit of behind the scenes time to get allow Sherry to get organized, and we will
Yeah,
thank Zach so much. I think your presentation sort of went beyond my expectations of really and super useful. I learned a lot, and I think that we all did. I think we're lucky to be able to interact with you live, and we'll post this on the site. If you want to send me the slides, and anyone who wants the slides for that presentation, if you're sticking around, I'll pop them in the chat. If not, you can email me and I'll send them out to you. Zach, thank you so much. We will.
oh, thank you all for
Yeah,
having me
yeah,
and
yeah.
enduring an hour's worth of boring insurance talk. So
It
really
was
appreciate it.
Absolutely not boring. I don't know how you did it, but it was I was kind of really very interested in everything you were saying. I'm sure everyone else was too. So
Well, I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a fantastic day.
thanks, Zach. Take care. See ya. Hi, Sherry. Welcome.
Hey,
Uh,
it was this, so I'm there's another presentation. Oh my gosh, exciting.
yeah, we had a special. We've got our insurance through a company called Prolink at OAFM, and they are doing our renewals, but they offered a new program, and I thought we should tell people about the program. So that's what this was. So that was an hour on like insurance, which was Zach did a great job. So it was really good. So
Oh, exciting. I'm gonna
yeah,
watch it after. I have
yeah.
I also work through Prolink, so I'll be excited to learn about that too.
Oh, it's really good. I'll stop that recording just so I can post them